Welcome back to another episode of Crime Scene X. Today's video will cover 4 true Craigslist horror stories. If you enjoy, leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe for daily uploads. Sit back and enjoy the video. I had heard all the warnings about Craigslist, but I never thought I'd become a cautionary tale. I was in the market for a camera, something professional enough to jumpstart my photography career without breaking the bank. That's when I saw the ad. DSLR camera, like new $400. The seller responded almost immediately to my inquiry, agreeing to meet at a public parking lot the next day. I thought a public place would be safe. I was wrong. Arriving a bit early, I parked my car and waited. Soon enough, a beaten-up SUV pulled into the spot next to me. The driver rolled down his window. "You here for the camera?" he asked. "Yeah," I replied, getting out of my car. He motioned for me to come closer, opening his glove compartment to reveal the camera in question. As I leaned in to inspect it, I felt a sharp pain in my side. Before I knew what was happening, he lunged at me, a syringe in his hand. My vision blurred, and then everything went dark. I woke up disoriented, my hands and feet bound, my mouth gagged. I was in a dimly lit room, the air thick with the smell of mildew. Realization set in. I had been kidnapped. Days, or maybe it was weeks passed. My captor would occasionally come in to leave food and water. He never spoke, and he wore a mask, concealing his face. I couldn't scream, and I couldn't fight back. My options were limited, but I knew I had to escape. The room had no windows, but it did have a door with an old rusty lock. Over the course of several visits, I noticed that my captor wasn't particularly careful about locking it. Seizing my chance during his next visit, I lunged at the door the moment he stepped out, throwing my weight against it. The rusty lock gave way and I stumbled into what appeared to be a basement. My heart pounding, I found the stairs and made my way to the ground floor. Spotting the front door, I sprinted toward it, flinging it open and running out into the open air. Freedom was short-lived, however. Before I could get far, a hand grabbed my arm, pulling me back. It was him, mask gone, a look of rage in his eyes. "Thought you could escape, did you?" he sneered. Just as he was about to drag me back inside, a loud bang echoed through the air. My captor let go, clutching his leg, his face twisted in pain. Behind him stood a neighbor, gun in hand, a phone pressed to her ear with her other hand. "Police are on their way," she said, her voice shaking but determined. I was one of the lucky ones. I escaped with my life, thanks to the vigilance of a neighbor who had noticed something off about the man living next door. My captor was arrested, and the ensuing investigation revealed a string of kidnappings and illegal activities. I'm sharing my story not as a victim, but as a warning. A simple Craigslist transaction turned into a life-altering ordeal, shattering my sense of security, but also opening my eyes to the dangers that lurk in seemingly innocuous corners of our lives. Remember, always take precautions, always meet in well-populated, well-lit areas, and never go alone. Trust your instincts and be aware of your surroundings. I thought it wouldn't happen to me, until it did. Don't make the same mistake. A minimalist lifestyle, that's what I was aiming for. That's why I decided to sell my late mother's antique armoire, a towering piece of furniture that had always felt out of place in my small apartment. I posted an ad on Craigslist. Antique armoire, solid wood, excellent condition, $250 or best offer. Within a couple of hours, I got a bite. The email read, "Would you accept $200? I can pick it up tonight." Eager to get rid of it and free up space, I quickly agreed. The buyer, Mark, said he would be there by 7 p.m. When he arrived, he was alone and without a vehicle large enough to carry the armoire. "I thought I'd just check it out first," he explained. "If I like it, I'll come back tomorrow with a van." Fair enough, I thought. Mark was average in almost every way. Average height, average build, wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans. Nothing about him seemed off. He inspected the armoire, opening and closing its ornate doors and pulling out each drawer. Finally, he nodded. "I'll take it. I'll bring the cash in the van tomorrow." True to his word, Mark returned the next day. This time he had a buddy with him and a sizable van parked outside. They moved the armoire with surprising ease, handed me $200 in crisp 20s, and were gone as quickly as they had come. I felt a sense of relief as I looked at the now empty space in my living room. That relief vanished later that night. Around 11 p.m., I started hearing noises, soft, indistinct sounds coming from the living room. A feeling of dread settled in the pit of my stomach. I told myself I was being silly, that it was just the sound of the apartment settling. Still, I decided to get up and take a look. The living room was empty, of course, but something caught my eye. There were fresh scuff marks near where the armoire had stood. Had Mark and his friend been less careful than I thought? My phone buzzed, jolting me out of my thoughts. An incoming email. The preview showed it was from Mark, the buyer. My thumb hovered over the screen, reluctant to open it. When I finally did, my heart sank. Thanks for the armoire. You wouldn't believe how spacious it is, almost roomy enough for a person. Attached was a photo. It was dark, but I could make out the shape of the empty armoire. Except it wasn't completely empty. A pair of eyes glinted from the darkness of the lower cabinet. My hands shook as I immediately dialed 911, showing them the email and the photograph. They traced Mark's email but found it was sent through a proxy. They checked the Craigslist ad, but it had been removed. I changed the locks, installed security cameras, and yet every night was a sleepless ordeal. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of wind against the window sent shivers down my spine. Then, about a month later, I received another email. No subject, no text, just another attachment. This time it was a photo of my living room taken from outside my window. The timestamp showed it was taken just a few minutes prior. I moved out the next day. Even now, years later, I can't shake the feeling that I'm still being watched. I've given up on the idea of living a minimalist lifestyle. Now I surround myself with people whenever possible, a self-imposed barrier against a threat that remains unseen. Craigslist? I can't even bear to hear the name. I've learned the hard way that some transactions involve much more than money and goods. Some come with a price that's exacted long after the deal is sealed. As an avid collector of vintage vinyl records, I was thrilled to see a listing for an extensive collection of classic rock albums on Craigslist. The price was unbelievably low for what was offered. Maybe I should have been more skeptical, but the temptation was too great to resist. I contacted the seller, who introduced himself as Mike. He was eager to move the collection quickly and agreed to meet the next day in the parking lot of a well-known shopping mall. To make myself feel safer, I decided to bring my friend Sarah along. 2 sets of eyes are better than 1, right? We arrived early and waited in my car, scanning for Mike's described vehicle, a red pickup truck. Right on time, the truck pulled into the parking lot and parked a few spots away from us. A man stepped out, holding up a phone as if checking to make sure he was meeting the right person. I waved, and he walked over. Mike looked harmless enough, middle-aged with a scruffy beard and a baseball cap. He greeted us warmly and led us to the back of his truck. Inside were boxes filled with vinyl records, all neatly categorized and labeled. As I was flipping through the collection, marveling at the titles and condition, Sarah tapped me on the shoulder and subtly nodded her head towards Mike. He was on his phone, texting. A simple action, yes, but something about it made us uneasy. Suddenly, a second vehicle pulled up beside the truck, a black SUV with tinted windows. 2 men stepped out, neither looking particularly friendly. Before I could fully register what was happening, one of the men grabbed me, pulling my arms behind my back and tying my wrists together with zip ties. "Wallet, phone now," Mike barked, revealing a switchblade from his pocket. I was in shock but managed to nod towards my pocket. One of the other men fished out my wallet and phone, then did the same to Sarah. Mike grabbed the items and tossed them into the SUV. "We should just take them with us," one of the men suggested, glancing at the SUV as if contemplating our fate. "No, too risky," Mike replied. "Just get in the car. We've got what we wanted." They got back into their vehicles, and just like that, they were gone, leaving Sarah and me standing there, shaken, robbed, but fortunately, unharmed. We managed to flag down a passerby who helped cut the zip ties and called the police for us. Despite providing detailed descriptions and license plate numbers, the perpetrators were never caught. The event left me scarred, deeply distrustful, and much wiser. What seemed like a harmless transaction turned into a well-coordinated robbery. I realized that my enthusiasm and lack of skepticism had made me an easy target. Since then, I've avoided Craigslist and similar platforms like the plague. I've also become a cautionary tale among my friends, a living example of what can go wrong when you let your guard down even in broad daylight. Craigslist seemed like the perfect platform to sell my old guitar. A relic from my college days, it had gathered dust for years. I finally decided to part with it, hoping it would find a new home where it would be appreciated. It wasn't long before I received a message from someone interested in buying it. He went by the name of Tony, and he suggested we meet at a local coffee shop to complete the sale. When I arrived at the designated meeting spot, Tony was already there, waiting outside. He was a clean-cut guy in his early 30s with a pleasant demeanor that put me at ease instantly. "Is this the beauty?" he asked, pointing at the guitar case I was carrying. "Yep, that's the one," I replied. Tony inspected the guitar carefully, strumming it a few times and seemed satisfied. He pulled out his wallet, counted 4 crisp $50 bills, and handed them to me. Just as I was about to pocket the money, I noticed something strange. The bills felt unusually smooth, almost like silk. "I think these bills are counterfeit," I said cautiously, holding them up to the light. Sure enough, they lacked the security features of legitimate currency. Tony's eyes narrowed. "You accusing me of something?" "Look, I can't accept this money," I stammered, handing the bills back to him. Suddenly, Tony pulled a knife from his pocket and lunged at me. I dodged, heart pounding, adrenaline surging through my veins. In one swift motion, I grabbed my guitar case and swung it at him, hitting him in the torso and knocking him off balance. Seizing the opportunity, I turned and ran towards the coffee shop, shouting for help. The few patrons inside looked up in alarm as I burst in, frantically explaining the situation. One of the employees quickly locked the door, and another dialed 911. Police arrived within minutes, arresting Tony, who was still loitering menacingly nearby. As it turned out, not only were the bills counterfeit, but the knife he had pulled on me was also reported stolen. He was charged with attempted assault, possession of a weapon, and distributing counterfeit money. For days after the incident, I couldn't shake the feeling of what could have happened if I had accepted the counterfeit bills or hadn't dodged the knife in time. The guitar went back to its corner, unsold but now a symbol of a close call. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, please like the video, comment what you thought, and subscribe for daily uploads.